Tang. In this video, I'd like to show you how to use the Prayer Tense Bible app. You can use the Prayer Tense Bible app for growth personally, within your small groups, or when you need to present a message in front of an audience. So how would you hold a small group meeting with no preparation? Someone can come up with a passage to read, then share the page with all members. Read together and have 3 to 5 minutes of personal reflection time. During that time, the members can select verses that were meaningful for them and write a small note about how it inspired them. Then go in the order of faces that populate the chapter to share why they picked particular verses. A group study like this requires no preparation and can be truly profound. Of course, start and end with prayer and trust God to direct you. What if you have a message to share in a group? Whether 7 people or thousands, and you do not have a screen to project the scriptures. You can have everyone pull out their phones to see the same passages together. If you're already part of a small group, it just takes one push of a button to get everyone on the same passage that you're on. If you are in front of others, they need to permit you to control their screen before sharing the scriptures you want them to see. What about those times when you are listening to a sermon or during your private moments of prayer when a passage is presented to you powerfully? You can save that note and add your other insights right into the scripture so that you can reference it in the future. You can also share it with your small group members so that they may be encouraged. Let me walk you through the details of how to do that. The interface is intentionally different for the desktop and the mobile version. So let's begin with what we would use more often on our phones. For those who like to look up passages using a list, the green circle button provides a list of Bible books and chapter numbers. For the more efficiency-focused users, you can type in a few letters of the book and chapter you wish to find, and select the chapter you want. You can also type in shorthand books of the Bible and point to specific verses. You can also separate multiple passages using semicolons. You can look up multiple verses using commas and hyphens. Complying with the publishers of the Bible translations, you can see a maximum of 5 chapters at a time. Then you have the option to select up to 2 versions of the Bible and see it in parallel. Supporting people who wish to read the Bible each year, we have sequential and chronological Bible reading plans. We also feature devotionals that you can use for personal reflections or with your small groups. If you are in a small group and have a reading list, it will show up here. It provides a one-button push to access your reading, and it tells you how many days your small group has been on this reading plan. Then you will find a history of recent searches below that. It helps you to return to your starting verses in case you got sidetracked during your more in-depth research. Then you have the button to share your page. A link is copied for you to share on your chat platforms. This link does not specify a particular version, so the viewers would see the verses you have selected in their favorite Bible versions and language. On the right of that is the Select All Verses button. This button was used to copy all verses in the past, but with later development to pick out verses to copy, it was grandfathered in to select all visible verses. All you have to do is now hit the copy button on the right to copy all as expected. Then you have the book and chapter header. On its right is the info button for the book that you are on. As you read, you may find yourself asking, when did this happen and who wrote it? This button provides a quick link with brief information with links to dig in deeper. You have the buttons to go to the previous chapter and the next chapter, and the next 3 buttons provide some options. The button that says Jesus in black tells you that this chapter has some direct words of Jesus in it. By default, you will see verses with Jesus' words in red. You can click on it to disable the red coloring. The button that says verse numbers can hide the chapter and verse numbers so that you can read the passage without distractions. Reading without chapter and verse numbers is a small group Bible reading method favored by InterVarsity and others. The Bible never really had chapter and verse breaks that we do today, but it has been added to make it easier to reference over the past 500 years. The next button allows you to listen to the reading of the chapter that you have open. You can follow along as it is read for you, or listen to it on its own. If If you leave it on, it will continue to the next chapters. It is useful for when you go jogging or driving. Then, on the right, you can adjust the font size for your reading. Then there's the Bible text, where you interact with your small group members and others who follow what you share. First, you can click on any verse reference numbers to see what the verse says in different versions. On each verse, if there are publisher-specific notes to explain the translation, you will find that by clicking on the blue quote icon. Now try selecting a verse or two, and you'll get new buttons on the right. These buttons allow you to mark or copy the verses for sharing. The bottom button resets your selections. The 4 copy buttons above provide different formatting for the verses you selected. Try them out and use the one you like. The top button allows you to mark a verse as a favorite or post a note. Marking a verse as a favorite allows you to return to these verses in the future for further reflection. It also is a great way to share with your small group that you read this section and had particular insights about one or more of these verses. When you have a thought or inspiration from God and some time to type it in, I encourage you to do it, as it will encourage you when you come back to this passage in the future. Otherwise, mark it as a favorite without notes. Then you have options that are pre-selected for you. If you leave it as public, it means that the general public can see what you have written. Generally, this message would be seen by your small group members and followers. It can be shared outside of that because your friends and followers can share your message. It will also appear publicly in your profile. Mark it as private if it is a message that is personal to you. Next, you have your list of small groups. When you post this message, it will automatically post on your small group chat room, and it will also send notifications to your small group members. So use this opportunity to encourage your brothers and sisters. As you continue with your reading, you may see faces. These faces are members of your small groups who marked these verses as favorites and perhaps left a note. You can review what they wrote, when they did it, and from where they posted this note by clicking on their faces. If you're a writer of the note, you can edit or delete the note. For all others, you have the option to read your note on a separate page by going directly to your note. By doing so, you can also get a direct link to the note so you can share it with others. As you scroll down, you may have noticed that a blue bar with a number appears on the upper left. It is your reading indicator. Since some chapters are longer than others, this is a visual indicator to estimate how much time it will take to get through your reading. If you scroll down further, you'll run into a purple box where you can mark that you have read the chapter. You can track your reading by hitting the green button, mark as read. If you read it a few days ago and forgot to mark it, you can change the date before hitting the button. If you want to see how much you have read so far, you can go to your profile menu and select Track Bible Reading. For every passage you open, you will have access to the resources to clarify what the passage means. First, you have access to the original manuscript of scriptures called the Interlinear Bible. Use this when you are uncertain of the original meaning. It will break down the original languages so that you can make sense of it. You also have access to some commentaries to help you answer any questions you may have had from your readings. Of course, if you ever get stuck, ask your small group members for help. Then ask your pastors. You can always ask prayer tent and we will get a qualified person to provide you with the answer. Then we have the Bible Project videos that give you an overview of your reading. It's pretty good. Check it out. If you're in a mood for a sermon or a focused reading, we also partnered with desiringgod.org with Pastor John Piper and his staff to provide us more focused context based on the chapter you're reading. Now let's look at the desktop interface. You can get to the desktop interface by opening up your favorite browser on your desktop computer and typing in www.prayertents.com. Then clicking on the Bible icon on the upper right. Alternatively, you can go directly to prayertentsbible.com. The interface is very different from the mobile app, mainly because it was designed to be projected on a screen shared by many people. For example, you can use this in your church where your congregation is looking at your projected screen. Prayer Tense Bible is most useful when you have speakers who do not have specific passages prepared for the person, which may be you, responsible for the media in advance. You can quickly type in the passage you want to be projected with minimal distraction to the viewers. You can can generally do the same activities you did on your mobile device, but with more freedom. You have the additional ability to choose up to 3 versions in parallel, show or hide subtitles and footnotes, and modify spacing for each verse on the screen. You also have shortcut keys. Unlike on a mobile device, you likely have access to a keyboard. Learn a few shortcuts and you'll be able to go through scriptures quickly without laying a hand on your mouse. Using shortcuts also allow you to update the screen for the audience with minimal distractions. Let's start with the most frequently used shortcut, F2. F2 brings you to the search box on the lower left. Then you can type in the scripture reference here, then enter. You also want to learn Control, comma, and period, which reduces and enlarges the text that people are reading. Also, press F4 if you want a visible list of the books in the Bible. Press F1 if you want a list of these shortcuts. In case you are wondering how to share the passage you are on with your small group of people in the audience, there is a share button on the middle right of the screen. Anyone who has permitted you to control their screen can get the pages loaded for them whenever you hit the button to share. Here's another item I missed. You can look up words in the search bar. For example, type in love. You'll find that it shows up 785 times in the New Living Translation version. If you have access to the Korean keyboard, you can type in chan, 세찬, 교, or 세교, and the number for the hymns, revised hymns, responsive readings, or the revised responsive readings, and you'll go right to them. So that concludes how to use the Prayer Tense Bible, both for your personal growth, for within your small groups, or within a congregation. Now I want to ask you, how do you use the Bible, both personally and in your small groups? I'd like to hear from you and learn if anything can make your studies and growth more enjoyable. This year, Prayer Tense has many initiatives to support the global church, including mobilizing our cities. If God directs your heart, join us by volunteering. God bless you, and I look forward to seeing you make disciples of Jesus, starting by being one.